So I've been playing the Multiversus alpha test, and let me tell you, it's actually a lot of fun. But you know me, I like playing everything, so it's only natural that I played with every character in the alpha test. This video will be broken down into 3 parts: a broad overview of Multiversus, my personal impressions of the game, and then an overview of every character. And before I start, I just want to thank Warner Brothers and Player First Games for the invitation to the alpha. I had a ton of fun playing it, and I can't wait for the full release. Anyways, let's get right into it. So, for starters, the elephant in the room is that yes, this game on the surface does look a lot like it took inspiration from Super Smash Bros. And yeah, it does. But it also does some super unique things that really sets it apart. I'll describe some of the biggest differences here since that's the easiest way to describe the gameplay. If you aren't super knowledgeable on how Super Smash Bros. Works, definitely check out my video where I played every Super Smash Bros. Game, which I'll link above and in the description. Also, of course, I'm playing the alpha version. There are obviously going to be differences from how it is now and how it'll be when it's fully released, so just keep that in mind. Also, I did encounter a couple of bugs, but I imagine those will also probably be fixed in the full release too. Nothing too game-breaking, fortunately. So the biggest difference here is that there's a focus on 2 versus 2, and some characters have abilities that explicitly support other characters. Here's a good example. Reindog can help another character recover after jumping off the side of the stage. Wonder Woman also has a similar use with her lasso. Another big difference is that in this game you can recover using walls. You just slide down them. There's also some smaller gameplay differences here. For example, you can do more than one air dodge, and there's also a super visual simplified fast fall just by holding down on the analog stick. Oh, and some attacks also have cooldowns, but I'll get into those later. Another interesting feature is charge attacks. These are like this game's version of the Meteor Smash. When you hold down a standard attack button, you can do a stronger version of that attack. There's also something called attack decay. With this, using the same move over and over without any variety causes that move to be less effective. While Super Smash Bros. Had something similar called stale moves that worked kinda similarly, this game's version gives you a visual indicator which encourages you to switch up your moves. Finally, there's now perks that you can unlock on a per character basis. These give you buffs for you and sometimes your team. Every character has a selection of signature perks which are very specific buffs for each character, and also standard perks which are a bit more broad and sometimes shared among everyone. You can unlock these by using the character in online matches. A couple of quick things to mention. Not every character is unlocked by default. At least in the alpha, you unlock characters using coins that you earn from playing matches. You also earn them from leveling up your account and the battle pass. In the alpha, each character costs 2,000 coins to unlock, which honestly doesn't take that long to accumulate. Moving on to the interface and menus, there's a few things to note here. On the main menu, the game options are the lab, custom game, and advanced tutorials. The first time you play, you actually play a basic tutorial which goes over how to play and does a pretty good job. The lab is the game's practice mode, and they really knocked it out of the park here with how fluid and easy it is to navigate. You can switch characters on the fly and change each character's behavior one by one. There's also quite a few kinds of behaviors to choose from. You can change the map too. Custom game is a mode where you can create your own private games with your own settings. You can balance the teams however you want, set the game mode, set the number of ring outs, the time limit, and the map rotation. There's also the option to invite friends into these games if you want to just play with friends, up to a total of 4 players. Advanced tutorials is a set of tutorials to teach you more of the game mechanics. This is stuff that you can learn just through playing, but I am glad that there's a pretty detailed breakdown built into the game. Moving on, there's the Battle Pass menu, which works about as you'd expect if you're familiar with Battle Passes. There's a free tier and a premium tier. In the alpha, the premium tier was unlocked by default though. Progress from the alpha unfortunately won't carry over to the full game, but it was nice to be able to see the progression system in action. The next menu is the collection. Here you can view and unlock characters, customize your ring out animation, mess with your perk loadouts, and customize your profile. Another neat thing I want to note is that you can also unlock different announcers for the game. You do this by reaching mastery level 14 with the character that you want to be the announcer. That just means that you have to play a lot of the character. Also, before I forget, the stages in this game are the training room, the Bat Cave, Scooby's Haunted Mansion, Tree Fort, which represents Adventure Time, and Trophy's Edge, which is an original map to this game not based on anything specific, but instead is a mashup of a bunch of different properties that you can see in the background. A few of the stages also have alternate versions with different platform and terrain setups. So, of course, the main modes are going to be the actual multiplayer modes. You can play versus bots or standard players. There's also a ranked mode, but it wasn't available in the alpha. The game modes that you can play are 1 versus 1, teams, which is a 2 versus 2 mode, and free-for-all. 1 versus 1 is a matchup where you play a best of 3 game. Well, of course, in any of these modes, you can choose to only play 1 round, because after each round it asks if you want to continue. Same with the 2 versus 2. What's nice is that this game feels really good in both 1 versus 1 and 2 versus 2 modes. It feels like just good fun and everyone feels balanced for both modes, and you can play as much or as little as you want. There's also that nagging where you're like, do I want to play another round? Then everyone else accepts the rematch, and internally you're like, I guess just one more, I don't want to spoil the fun. In the 2 versus 2 modes, you can also optionally stay in a party with the person that you matched with if you want. Then there's the free-for-all mode. This one might as well be called chaos mode because there's a lot going on here. I'm not the biggest fan of this mode, but I do like how as time goes on, the blast box decreases in size, making it easier to get KOs. So before I move on to the character breakdowns, I just wanted to give my overall impressions of this game, at least in the alpha. This game is a lot of fun and has a ton of potential. It does not feel like a cash grab at all, which is something that I know some people feared. The mechanics are solid and the netcode is shockingly great. I forgot that I was playing online a lot of the time because there was no discernible input delay thanks to what I assume is rollback based netcode. The characters all have a ton of personality too, plus this game has my favorite thing ever, character specific dialogue. Characters talk to and about each other, even if they're from completely different franchises. Hearing Shaggy, I don't know, talk about Batman or tell Harley Quinn that she's a terrible doctor is just super entertaining and never gets old. Speaking of Shaggy, they really leaned into the whole meme thing here and are totally just unabashedly making this game for people who just want to have fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, hence how you get fantastic voice lines like Batman underestimating Shaggy's power level. Also, speaking of voice acting, there's actually a pretty good amount of it and it all sounds great. Every voice actor here sounds like they were having fun recording their lines, and that's something I can get behind. Also, the characters' dialogue changes depending on their costumes sometimes, and in Cake's case, there's an entirely different voice actor behind the character. This is a super neat touch, and I love stuff like this. Some of the characters, especially characters like Batman, have a ton of potential with this kind of thing. In fact, they already actually have a couple of lines borrowed from the movies. Also, the soundtrack here is pretty good too. It does lack a little variety, but the standard game themes are very orchestral and vibrant, and the actual maps have music from their franchises. The Batman stage, for example, has an entire musical section of just the Batman animated series theme, and there is nothing more iconic than the Batman theme. I don't know if I can fully form an opinion on the music until I hear more themes from more stages as they eventually get released, though. My main complaints in this game are really just some balancing issues, but this is an alpha and those can easily be fixed. The core gameplay and progression systems are solid, and I will definitely play more of this as soon as I'm given another opportunity. So overall, this game is great, and I think it has the potential to be a really big hit. I hope it takes off and we'll see some really cool stuff come out of it and the community. I'm sure there's wild techs that are just waiting to be discovered over time too. So now we're on to the character breakdowns. For the record, I'm not a super experienced Smash Bros. Pro or anything, so my explanations here are going to be fairly basic. These are just broad overviews of the characters based on my interpretations. Oh, and obviously there will be more characters down the line. These are just all of the characters in the alpha. Oh, and one more thing. When you're in the lab, which is the training mode, if you spend time not moving or doing anything, the music just fades out into silence. It does immediately kick back in when you start moving again though. Whoever coded this, if you're watching this video, just know that I did notice. Alright, so I'm gonna go in order on the character select screen. So we're starting with Shaggy. Shaggy in this game is pretty much the ultimate meme version that you've seen with the whole Dragon Ball Z motif intact. His default moves are standard punches, and his down attack is a stomp that can break armor and apply a slow debuff. His neutral special is a charge move that, when fully charged, gives him a buff that powers up all of his other specials. His side special is called Snacking Instinct Kick, which obviously is a reference to Ultra Instinct. He just straight up powers up like Goku. His up special is a power uppercut, which hits once normally but multiple times if he's enraged. His down special summons a sandwich that can be thrown. It heals allies and hurts enemies. Also, he has a second skin called Uncle Shagworthy. Wonder Woman has the moves you'd pretty much expect her to have. Her standard attacks use a mixture of her sword and her shield. Her neutral attack is a sword swing, and her down attack is Amazon Shout, which can optionally be charged and releases a projectile wave from her bracers. This move requires her to charge up a meter though. Using the move uses up the entire meter. When you do use it, you and any allies get armor. Her neutral attack is the Lasso of Truth, which pulls opponents and allies toward her but has a cooldown. Her side attack is Warrior's Charge, which gives her armor and destroys any projectiles. Destroying a projectile gives her an instant secondary use of the move. If she passes by an ally using this, they receive armor too. Her down special is Defense of the Gods. This removes debuffs from allies and gives them a buff called Shielded. It's described as being similar to armor but blocks the next hit from an enemy. Being shielded also increases the meter I mentioned earlier. So Reindog is a totally entirely original character to this game, not actually from anything else to my knowledge. Reindog's abilities are a mixture of standard attacks and support abilities. The actual attacks have a shocking amount of range to them, like the down special which launches a fireball, and the neutral standard attack which shoots an energy bullet thing. There's also an entire tether with Reindog's neutral special that damages enemies that touch it, and if it touches an ally it lasts longer. This one does have a cooldown though, so you can't spam it. Reindog is big, but actually has pretty good recovery. This is a character that I didn't get see picked a whole lot online, but definitely has potential. Jake is a lot of fun. He gives me Kirby vibes with his moveset, mixed in with a little bit of Mr. Fantastic. Jake's moves are lots of stretching and transforming moves. His aerial down special though is literally Kirby's. It's great. It does have a minor difference in that the projectiles that hit it get deflected though. His other moves include his down aerial standard, which has him pull out a skateboard, and each time it hits you get a combo increase. Hitting 3 times deals a debuff to the enemy. His side special is a charge move that turns him into a horse and launches him in the chosen direction. His standard special literally just eats the opponent, and they can be spit out left or right or in an arc upwards. He also has a secondary skin in this game that I mentioned earlier, which is Cake, who is fully voiced separately. This is a great touch. Steven Universe has, weirdly, a kind of similar moveset to Wonder Woman in my opinion. At least his utility is similar. His standard attacks are bubble punches, while his air moves use a lot of shields. His special moves are a mixture of projectiles and charge moves. His neutral special is a tether that can stick to allies, but if an enemy is caught in it when it deactivates, it hits them with an attack. His side and up specials are charged shield attacks, and his down special has him plant a watermelon that can heal him and his allies. After a certain amount of time, the watermelon turns into a secondary ally that actually joins the fight with you. I think I'd have more appreciation for his abilities if I was super knowledgeable on Steven Universe, but unfortunately that show is still in my backlog. Superman has basically every move you'd expect. His standard attacks are super powerful charge punches, and his specials are heat vision and ice breath. An interesting note, his side special allows you to choose where the attack lands using your joystick. However, if you have the option enabled that allows you to flick the stick up to jump, it interferes with this move. If you play Superman, I highly recommend not using that option because it makes this move a bit harder to land properly. Superman's best ability, in my opinion, is his ground up special. In the air, his up special is just an uppercut, but on the ground, it launches an enemy up and then back down. Think about how Cloud's up special works in Super Smash Bros. It's pretty similar. Garnet is another character from Steven Universe. She has a few interesting moves. Her standard attacks are punch combos and armored charge attacks. Her down neutral is a projectile that shoots in both directions. Her neutral special is a singing ability that stops enemy projectiles where they are. Those projectiles can then be punched back at the enemy who threw them. Her side special fires her gauntlets at the enemy, but there is a cooldown. Her most useful move, in my opinion, is her down special. This puts down a marker that she's tethered to, and you can recall her to it at any time. It can also be attached to allies too. I like Garnet, but I don't really have much to say about her. Her moves are fun, but I feel like she's the hardest, at least for me, to link combos to, and she doesn't have much KO potential. Batman is an interesting character because of his main standard attack. It's a batarang which has a cooldown, but only if you don't retrieve it. So you can throw a single batarang, and if you don't go grab it, you have to wait to throw another. A secondary downside is that enemies can pick it up and throw it back at you. When you do retrieve it, there is a tiny cooldown, but it's significantly faster, only like a second. His other moves are charged punches and kicks, but his side special is a grapple that can link to either an opponent or the stage itself. This move is super useful for chaining combos and keeping the enemies airborne. His neutral special is a bat bomb. The bomb attaches itself to the first enemy you attack after using it, and it detonates after a few seconds. You can also attach it to a batarang and throw that too. His down special, by the way, is just straight up a smoke bomb that obscures anyone who walks into it. His stage also has something similar built into it with steaming vents on each side. Batman, in my opinion, is probably the easiest character to make fun combos with when you first start. His whole kit is super easy to figure out, and I enjoyed playing as him. Also, Kevin Conroy's voicing him, so that's a huge plus. Oh, and Batman has a super cool second outfit just called Samurai. Harley Quinn's moveset is chaos, in my opinion, which is fitting for her character. Her standard attacks are a mixture of hits with mallets and bats, the baseball kind, along with a charge kick move for her down attack. Her special moves are all carnival gimmicks. Her standard special is a sticky Batman bomb that can attach to whoever she throws it at and then be detonated at any time. She can also attach it to herself to damage people near her when it's detonated. Her side special is a projectile that fires in the opposite direction of your input, which does feel a bit weird but works shockingly well when you're linking combos. Her down special is probably the hardest to use effectively since it's more of a stationary bomb that enemies have to run into. Harley Quinn is fun to play overall, and you can do some pretty fun combos as her. Her whole kit works and it matches her character. Plus, she's voiced by the iconic Tara Strong, so she's entertaining to watch even if you're not great at her. Bugs Bunny is a lot of fun because he has a bunch of wacky cartoon moves and just kinda summons Acme products out of thin air. His standard moves are mallet attacks and kicks. His down attack is a pie throw which heals allies and debuffs enemies. His His neutral special is a big safe that he can drop on the ground that can then be hit left or right to slam into enemies. When the safe is destroyed, it drops an item. His side special is a charm debuff that makes enemies follow him. Well, it's supposed to, but in my experience it just stuns them. His up special is a rocket that he can fire up, and his down special is a burrow that allows him to avoid attacks and move across the stage. The downside is that enemies can also use these tunnels after you've made them. Bugs also has an alternate skin called Bougie. Arya Stark is an interesting character given the complete tonal dissonance of Game of Thrones against these super cartoony characters and stages. That being said, they did do a pretty good job of translating the character to this art style, and they actually got Maisie Williams to do the voice, so it doesn't feel disingenuous or anything. She also has a passive that increases her damage if she hits an enemy in the back. Her standard moves are, well, sword slices and stabs. However, if she uses her neutral special, Face Stealer, she can instead use an enemy's standard neutral attack. Speaking of, her neutral special allows her to copy an enemy and then use a special stun on them while using their emote, which is kinda funny to me. Her side special is Knife Throwing, which can then be used again to tether straight to an enemy, sort of like Batman's grappling hook. Her down special tethers her to an ally and gives them both a buff that makes them break armor on their next attack. Arya's moveset is actually fairly standard but fun if you're looking for a no-nonsense sword fighter character. So aesthetically, Tom and Jerry is my favorite roster choice for one reason alone. Their whole shtick is that they're trying to hurt each other but are inadvertently hitting the opponents instead. Also, the first move I'll talk about is their side special, which normally can be used to launch Jerry into an enemy, but also can just be used to callously launch Jerry into the void, which is the funniest thing in the world to me. One aspect of the kit is that Tom and Jerry can be separated, and in this case, you can actually do a fun back and forth between them that still damages enemies. Of course, if Jerry falls off the map, Tom is still usable alone, albeit with a slightly altered moveset. Tom and Jerry, in my opinion, are the most inventive characters as far as movesets go in this game so far. I absolutely love the whole dynamic, and it feels like a lot of love and attention went into them. Tom and Jerry also have a secondary skin called Pirates that's, well, pirate themed. Finn has a super cool mechanic where he earns coins, and then those coins can be used for some of his moves. His standard moves are sword slices and charges. His neutral special is a chargeable high five that not only damages enemies, but reflects projectiles back at the enemy. His side special is a projectile blocking attack, and his up special is a backpack spin move that gets stronger as he has more gold. However, he drops gold when the attack lands. His down special allows him to open up this little shop to pick a buff for him and his allies. Finn is interesting mainly because of the gold gimmick. I think without it, he wouldn't be as fun. That being said, he is still fun to play in general because of it. He's also stupid strong if you can link his moves together. Velma is an interesting choice for the roster solely because, well, Velma is Velma. Shaggy has the meme potential, so they definitely had to get more creative with Velma. Velma is also one of the 2 experimental characters, which I assume means that they're still in active development, at least more so than the other characters. So Velma has this passive called Snoopin', which causes enemies to drop evidence books. Collecting enough of these books fills up her evidence meter. This causes a police car to show up and take one of the opponents off the side of the map. The enemy's allies can hit the car to attempt to break them out, though. Velma's standard attack are also pretty creative. It's a mixture of text bubbles and a signature idea light bulb. Her neutral special is a motivational speech beam that hits enemies and heals allies. Her side attack is a chargeable sprint, which when charged does the iconic Scooby-Doo scrambling. Velma is super creative though and a lot of fun to play. She also, to my knowledge, is the only character who can move while crouched, and the crouch animation is actually her not wearing her glasses, which is a fun little throwback. The Tasmanian Devil is the final character in the alpha, and he's the second character that's indicated to be an experimental character. He's also probably my favorite character to play in the entire alpha. Taz has this passive called Tasty, where some of his attacks do a debuff to the enemy. When the debuff stacks enough over time, the enemy is transformed into a chicken and stuck as one for a few seconds, losing access to all of their abilities. His standard attacks are stomps and food-based abilities, funnily enough. One of them has him drinking soup and spitting it back at enemies, another is him seasoning the enemy with salt and pepper. His neutral special makes him chomp down on enemies and projectiles. Using these moves actually makes his down special stronger too, which has a visual indicator to tell you if it's done or not. His side special is the iconic Taz Tornado, which is probably his strongest move in my opinion. Maybe a little too strong, but I still abused it. This move has a mixture of power and movement, which is super useful for staying agile and avoiding attacks from the enemy. It also has a huge amount of KO potential. His up special is a dogpile move that sticks enemies into a cartoon fight and does multiple hits of damage. It does, however, have a cooldown. His down special has him burp out a piece of food or whatever projectile he ate earlier. Like I said, Taz is a ton of fun, and I think as it stands, I like playing as him the most right now. His moveset is super creative and he just feels good to play. But overall, everyone else also feels really good to play. Oh, and Taz has a secondary costume called Summertime Taz. And that covers everyone. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and all the other cool YouTube stuff. I appreciate you for watching this, and hopefully I get invited to the next test so I can cover it again. I know this is a bit different from what I normally do, but this was a nice little break from the normal content. I am still working on the next video as we speak, though. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.